lead soldier.
And I don't know who you are, mister, but there's been a big mistake here.
The only mistake you made was getting drunk when you...
What if America's perfect TV family was tearing itself apart behind the scenes? For 14 seasons, Bonanza showed us the ideal father and sons working together on the Ponderosa Ranch. But the truth was far darker. One son hated the show so much he walked away from millions. Another died under mysterious circumstances that some say were preventable. The father ruled with an iron fist that crushed creativity and joy. Today, we are exposing the bitter feuds and tragic deaths that destroyed the Cartwright family. The real story of Bonanza will break your heart. Before we dive into video, please subscribe to our channel. Before we dive into why the Cartwright family fell apart, we need to understand what made Bonanza so incredibly successful and why leaving it seemed impossible. Bonanza premiered on NBC in September 1959, and it was unlike anything television had ever seen. It was the first Western filmed in color. It was shot on location at Lake Tahoe with breathtaking scenery, and it told stories about a family that stuck together no matter what. The Ponderosa Ranch was 1,000 square miles of Nevada territory. Ben Cartwright was the patriarch, played by Lorne Greene. He was a widower 3 times over who had raised 3 sons alone. Each son had a different mother who had died tragically. Adam was the oldest, the intellectual, played a teen idol. The cast went on personal appearance tour where thousands of fans showed up just to see them. They sold Bonanza lunch boxes and toys and comic books. There was even a Bonanza-themed amusement park built at Lake Tahoe, but all that success came with a price. The actors were locked into brutal contracts that controlled their lives. They filmed 34 episodes per season, which meant working 10 months out of every year. They had almost no time off. They could not pursue other projects. They were trapped playing the same characters year after year with no creative input and no escape. The contracts were ironclad. If an actor tried to leave, the studio could sue them for breach of contract and destroy their career. It was a golden cage that looked beautiful from the outside but felt like prison to those inside. Pernell Roberts played Adam Cartwright, the smart, serious oldest son. Adam was the voice of reason on the Ponderosa. He was educated and cultured and often tried to find peaceful solutions to problems. Pernell Roberts was a classically trained stage actor who had worked on Broadway and in serious dramatic productions. He saw himself as an artist. He had taken the role on Bonanza actors. They were told to show up, say their lines, and not complain. For someone like Purnell, who saw acting as a collaborative art form, this was insulting. He started calling Bonanza junk television. He told reporters that the show was beneath him. He said it was a waste of his talent. You can imagine how well that went over with the producers and his co-stars. Lorne Greene, who played Ben Cartwright, was furious. He felt Purnell was being ungrateful and arrogant. Here they were on the biggest show on television, making more money than they had ever dreamed of, and Purnell was complaining. Michael Landon, who played Little Joe, thought Purnell better storylines. They even let him direct an episode. Nothing worked. Purnell had made up his mind. He was leaving. In 1965, after 6 seasons, Purnell Roberts walked away from Bonanza. He gave up a reported salary of over $100,000 per year, which was an enormous amount of money at that time. He gave up security and fame and the biggest show on television. His reasoning was simple. He would rather be poor and have his integrity than be rich and hate himself. The producers were shocked. Actors did not just quit hit shows. It was unheard of. They tried to change his mind. They offered him even more money. They threatened to sue him. Nothing worked. Purnell was done. On the show, Adam Cartwright was written out in a single episode. He told his father he was going to sea to start a new life. Ben gave him his blessing. And just like that, 1/3 of the Cartwright family was gone. Fans were devastated. Adam had been a crucial part of the show's dynamic. Letters poured in demanding his return. But Purnell never looked back. He went back to stage acting and did occasional TV guest appearances. He never achieved the same level of success he had on Bonanza. For years, he struggled to find work. Casting directors saw him as difficult and ungrateful. Other actors did not want to work with someone who had such a reputation. Purnell later admitted that leaving Bonanza had been both the best and worst decision of his life. He never regretted standing up for his principles. But he did regret how he had handled it. He wished he had been less vocal in his criticism. He wished he had not burned so many bridges. By the time he died in 2010, Purnell had made peace with his Bonanza legacy. He recognized that Adam Cartwright had meant a lot to people, that the show had brought joy to millions, but he never apologized for leaving. The departure of Purnell Roberts changed Bonanza forever. The show had to restructure itself around 3 Cartwrights instead of 4. The dynamic that had worked so well for 6 seasons was broken. Adam had been the thoughtful one who provided intellectual balance. Without him, the show leaned more heavily on action and emotion. The producers brought in new characters to fill the gap. They introduced Candy Canaday, played by David Canary, as a ranch foreman. They brought in Griff King, played by Tim Matheson, as a young ranch hand. They even brought in a half-brother named Clay, played by David Canary, in a different role. But none of them had the same impact as Adam. The chemistry was never quite right. Fans accepted these new characters, but they never loved them the way they had loved the original 4 Cartwrights. The show continued to be successful, but something essential was missing. The family felt incomplete. Then in 1972, tragedy struck that made Purnell's departure look insignificant. Dan Blocker, who played Hoss Cartwright, died suddenly at age 43. Dan was the heart and soul of Bonanza. Hoss was the most beloved character on the show. He was gentle and kind and funny. He was the peacemaker who kept the family together. He could fight when he had to, but he preferred to talk things out. He loved animals and children, and he never met a person he could not befriend. Dan Blocker was equally beloved off camera. He was warm and generous and had no ego. Everyone who worked with him loved him. Unlike Pernell Roberts, Dan never complained about the show. He was grateful for the opportunity and the success. He treated everyone on set with respect, from the stars to the crew members. He was a devoted family man who went home to his wife and kids every night. Dan had been a teacher before becoming an actor, and he still had that teacher's heart. He mentored young actors on set. He helped crew members with their problems. He donated money quietly to people in need. Dan Blocker seemed healthy and happy. He was a big man, over 300 pounds, but he was active and energetic. But in May 1972, he went into the hospital for routine gallbladder surgery. Something went wrong during the operation. He developed a pulmonary embolism. Blood clots traveled to his lungs, and suddenly he was gone. The Bonanza family was in shock. Lorne Green was devastated. He had worked with Dan for 13 years. They had become like father and son in real life. Michael Landon was heartbroken. He and Dan had been close friends. They had raised their kids together. The crew members cried openly. Dan Blocker had been the kindest person on set. He remembered everyone's name. He asked about their families. He made people feel valued. Now he was gone, and nothing would ever be the same. The entire entertainment industry mourned his loss. Tributes poured in from actors and directors and fans. Dan Blocker had been only 43 years old. He left behind a wife and 4 children. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched. For the producers of Bonanza, Dan's death created an impossible problem. How do you continue a show about a family when one of the family members has died? They considered canceling the show entirely, but NBC wanted to keep going. Bonanza He was the bridge between Ben's wisdom and little Joe's passion. He was the comic relief and the emotional center. Without him, Bonanza felt hollow and sad. Every episode was a reminder that someone was missing. The writers brought in new characters. They tried new storylines. They even brought back Pernell Roberts for a guest appearance, hoping to recapture some of the old magic. But nothing worked. The ratings started to decline. After just one more season, NBC canceled Bonanza in January 1973. The show that had been #1 in America for years limped to an end. Many people blamed Dan Blocker's death for the show's cancellation. Others said it had been time for Bonanza to end anyway. But everyone agreed that losing Hoss had broken something that could not be fixed. There were also darker rumors about Dan Blocker's death. Some people whispered that it had been preventable, that the hospital had made mistakes during his surgery, that if he had been treated differently, he might have survived. There were questions about whether his weight had been a factor, whether the doctors had been properly prepared for surgery on a man his size. Dan's family never publicly blamed anyone. They said it was just a tragic accident, but the questions lingered. Some fans wondered if the grueling schedule of Bonanza had contributed to his health problems. Filming 34 episodes a year meant long days and constant stress. Dan rarely took time off. He pushed himself hard, maybe too hard. In the years since, some Bonanza fans have called the show cursed. First, Pernell Roberts leaves in anger. Then Dan Blocker dies unexpectedly. Then the show collapses. It seemed like too much tragedy for one family, even a fictional one. Michael Landon, who played Little Joe, was the only one of the 3 sons who stayed with Bonanza from beginning to end. But even he paid a price for that loyalty. Michael had been a struggling actor when he got cast on Bonanza at age 22. The show made him a star. Teenage girls had his poster on their walls. He received thousands of fan letters every week. He was mobbed wherever he went. But as the years went on, Michael became frustrated with being Little Joe. He wanted to write and direct and produce. He had creative ambitions beyond just acting. He watched Pernell Roberts leave, and part of him envied that courage. He saw Dan Blocker die, and it terrified him. Life was short. Did he want to spend it all playing the same character? The producers of Bonanza were more flexible with Michael than they had been with Pernell Roberts. They let him write episodes. They let him direct. They gave him more control. Michael wrote some of the show's best episodes. He directed several as well, but it was not enough. Michael was itching to create his own show, to tell his own stories, to have complete creative freedom. The moment Bonanza ended in 1973, Michael Landon jumped into a new project. He created and starred in Little House on the Prairie, which became an even bigger hit than Bonanza. He finally had the creative control he had always wanted. He wrote and directed most of the episodes. He shaped every aspect of the show. It was everything Bonanza had not let him be. But Michael later admitted that the years on Bonanza had been difficult. The long hours and lack of freedom had worn him down. He had watched Pernell Roberts leave and always wondered if he should have done the same. He had lost his friend Dan Blocker and carried that grief for the rest of his life. He felt guilty that he had survived when Dan had not, that he got to go on and create new things while Dan was gone. Michael Landon died of pancreatic cancer in 1991 at age 54. It was shockingly sudden. He went from healthy to terminal in just months. In his final interviews, he talked about Bonanza with mixed feelings. He was proud of the show and grateful for what it had given him. It had launched his career and made him wealthy and given him opportunities he never would have had otherwise. But he also felt it had taken years of his life that he could never get back. 14 years playing Little Joe. 14 years of the same character and the same stories. He did not regret staying, but he understood why Pernell had left. Lorne Greene, who played Ben Cartwright, was the patriarch in every sense. He was the leader on screen and off. He was the one who kept the show together through all the departures and tragedies. Lorne was a Canadian actor who had been a radio announcer before getting into television. He had a magnificent voice and a commanding presence. He was perfect as Ben Cartwright, but Lorne paid his own price for that perfection. He became so identified with Ben Cartwright that he could never escape it. For the rest of his career, people saw him as Pa Cartwright. He did other shows and movies, but nothing ever matched Bonanza. He starred in Battlestar Galactica in the late 1970s. He did commercials and guest appearances, but everywhere he went, people called him. They expected him to be wise and patient and fatherly. Lorne resented Pernell Roberts for leaving. He never fully forgave him. He felt Pernell had been selfish and had damaged the show. That role defined his life and legacy. Whether that was a blessing or a curse depends on how you look at it. He was beloved by millions. He was wealthy and successful, but he was also trapped by that success in ways he never fully escaped. The legacy of Bonanza is complicated. It was one of the most successful shows in television history. It ran for 14 seasons and 431 episodes. It made its stars wealthy and famous. It entertained millions of people. It showed families gathering together every week. It provided comfort and escapism during turbulent times, but it also destroyed relationships and consumed lives and ended in tragedy. Pernell Roberts was right that the show was artistically limited. It was formulaic and repetitive and avoided difficult topics. The same stories were told over and over with slight variations. Bad guys threatened the Ponderosa. One of the sons fell in love with a woman who died or left. Someone was falsely accused and had to be cleared. But the show was also warm and comforting and showed a family that loved each other. Millions of people needed that. They needed to see a father and sons who worked through their problems together, who supported each other no matter what, who chose family over everything else. Dan Blocker's death was a tragedy that no one could have predicted or prevented. It robbed the world of a talented actor and a genuinely good man. It robbed Bonanza of its heart, and it showed how fragile success can be. But behind the scenes, they were just as flawed and complicated as any real family. They fought and resented each other and struggled with their choices. The difference is that their struggles played out on the biggest stage in America. Bonanza also took a toll on the supporting cast and crew. The brutal filming schedule affected everyone. Marriages suffered because actors were never home. Children grew up without their fathers around. Crew members worked exhausting hours for modest pay while the stars became millionaires. There was resentment and jealousy and burnout. Some crew members later said that working on Bonanza was the best and worst job they ever had. The show gave them steady employment for years, but it also demanded everything they had. So what do you think? Was Pernell Roberts right to leave Bonanza, or did he make a mistake? Could the show have survived without Dan Blocker? Was the success of Bonanza worth what it cost the people who made it? Should actors sacrifice their artistic integrity for financial success, or should they follow their conscience? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And do not forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the truth behind your favorite classic shows. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.